R. Morrow, an American broadcast journalist, is going to be noted for his honesty and his integrity in delivering the news. Now, Morrow's last major TV milestone was reporting and narrating a CBS report called Harvest of Shame. It was a report on the plight of migrant farm workers in the United States. The film was directed by Fred W. Friendly, and it was produced by David Lowe. And the program originally aired just after Thanksgiving Day in November of 1960. So it's most appropriate. Thanksgiving is coming around the corner. Now, the December 5th, 1960 edition of Time magazine quoted producer Lowe as saying, "We felt that by scheduling the program the day after Thanksgiving, we could stress the fact that much of the food cooked for Thanksgiving throughout the country was picked by migratory workers. We hoped that the pictures of how these people live and work would shock the consciousness of the nation." So let's go to a film clip that introduces the documentary.
Over here, 7 cents. All day, John. Over here, 7 cents today. We're paying today. We're paying more than anybody in town. 7 cents, heavier today. 70 cents today. 70 cents. 70 cents all day jumping. All you can do is value.
8 cents a box, and you guarantee you if you pull today and we pull what we got to pull today, you'll have $11 in your pocket.
This is not taking place in the Congo. It has nothing to do with Johannesburg or Cape Town. It is not Nyasaland or Nigeria. This is Florida. These are citizens of the United States, 1960. This is a shape-up for migrant workers. The hawkers are chanting the going peace rate at the various fields. This is the way the humans who harvest the food for the best-fed people in the world get hired. One farmer looked at this and said, "We used to own our slaves. Now we just rent them." The Secretary of Labor looked at the migrant plight and said,
"I think they're the great mass of what I've called the excluded Americans. They are people who cry out, the workers and their children and their wives, who cry out for some assistance, and whose plight is a shame. It's a shame in America."
The president of the American Farm Bureau Federation, the largest farmers' organization, says,
"I think that most social workers would agree that it's better for a man to be employed, even if his capacity is such as to limit his income. And we take the position that it's far better to have thousands of these folks who are practically unemployable, earning some money, doing some productive work for at least a few days in the year."
This is an American story that begins in Florida and ends in New Jersey and New York State with the harvest. It is a 1960 Grapes of Wrath that begins at the Mexican border in California and ends in Oregon and Washington. It is the story of men and women and children who work 136 days of the year and average $900 a year. They travel in buses. They ride trucks. They follow the sun.
Well, I don't know. It don't look like we'll ever get ahead. I guess we'll just have to keep going till we can find something better.
A minister named Cassidy, who works with them, says,
"They are just as bad as the slaves. Only on name they are not a slave, but in the way they are treated, they are worse than a slave. And somebody has to make thousands of dollars out of his sweat. Is that a slave or not?"
They are the migrants, workers in the sweatshops of the soil, the harvest of shame.
Brought to you tonight by Philip Morris Incorporated, makers of Marlboro, filter cigarette with the unfiltered taste. Now, Edward R. Murrow.
This is CBS Reports, Harvest of Shame. It has to do with the men, women, and children who harvest the crops in this country of ours, the best fed nation on earth. These are the forgotten people, the underprotected, the undereducated, the underclothed, the underfed. We present this report of Thanksgiving because were it not for the labor of the people you are going to meet, you might not starve, but your table would not be laden with the luxuries that we have all come to regard as essentials. We should like you to meet some of your fellow citizens who harvest the food for the best fed nation on earth.
David Lowe talks to Mrs. Doby, 34 years old, mother of 9 children.
Mrs. Doby, what things do you pick up north?
We pick strawberries and cherries.
Who works with you out of this family here?
Everybody except the baby.
Who takes care of them in the field?
Well, they just kindly stay along with us or take care of themselves. The one that can't walk usually stays in the baby buggy.
What is an average dinner for the family?
Well, you mean what do we have in?
Yes.
Well, I cook a pot of beans and fry some potatoes or some corn or something like that.
How many quarts of milk do you buy for the children, Mrs.
Well, we don't have milk except maybe when we draw our paycheck, we have milk about once a week.
For all these children you have
The
milk?
baby has, she is on the bottle and she uses about 15 cans of milk a week, but the older children have milk about once a week.
Do they like to drink milk, Mrs. Doby?
Yes, they like milk.
The only reason I asked that question, I was quite shocked that they had milk only once a week.
Just thought they didn't like it, but they like milk, but well, there's so many, a gallon of milk will make them a glass around, and so we just can't afford it every day.
What do you want most for your children, Mrs. Doby?
Well, I'd like for them to have a career, whatever they want to be when they got older. Of course, the smaller ones, don't realize yet to know what they'd like to be. But the older girl, she'd like to go to school if she could. Of course, she'll probably be like the boy, have to quit as soon as she's old enough. She really likes to go to school, but she had to miss last week because she had to keep the baby for me to work.
Mrs. Doby, wouldn't you ever care to have a house of your own?
I'd like to have a house if we plan to buy one. If we could ever get enough to pay down on one, we'd buy one.
Do you think this will ever happen?
Well, it don't seem like it.
Again, this is a very powerful documentary that hit, that everyone was watching after Thanksgiving, the day of Thanksgiving. If you remember what the interviewer was asking Miss Doty is what do you have for dinner? She had no concept of what dinner was. You mean what do we eat? Again, there was no such thing as breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's just, you mean what do we eat?